Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word PrisonPro to 44222. Again, text PrisonPro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you reviewed our podcast and we'll send you a free digital book. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode of Prison Professors. Welcome to Prison Professors. Today we are going to hear from an individual who once was facing multiple life sentences in prison. He's going to tell us about the decisions that brought him into prison, but more importantly, we are going to hear about how decisions he made while he was locked up led to him leading a life of success and fulfillment and relevance. He's got amazing support, and he's about ready to do some amazing things, and I look forward to sharing the story of my new friend Shane Pardo with you right now. So Shane, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you into the criminal justice system.
Well, before I was 10 years old, I think it's a common story, but maybe not told by many. But, my parents both were bikers. I was born addicted to drugs, almost died, after birth. My mom physically abused me. I almost died 3 times before I was a couple months old from physical abuse. Before I was 10 years old, I basically endured from one degree to another, every type of abuse an individual can at a young age. My father wasn't really much part of the picture. He came back when I was 6 years old, started doing the whole father-son thing. Then at 6.5, he died. I started trying to hang myself. And by 7, I started getting put in psychiatric institutions in the state of Maryland. Gundry Glass, Shepherd Pratt, Fairbridge. I've been in most of them in the state of Maryland from just before 7 years old up until around 12. And then I was in another one, Taylor Manor, briefly when I was about 14 or 15. I characterize that period as a period of time where all the authority figures in my life, in one way or another, violated their fundamental roles. So I didn't trust authority figures. Therapists, I used to have to go see them. Their quick answer was put me on medication. So basically, when I, became a teenager, when I was big enough and when in my mind old enough to rebel, I just started rebelling. I started doing whatever I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, because in my mind, that's what all authority figures do. They just do what they want to do, not what they're supposed to do. So instead of letting them, dictate how my life was going to be, I just started dictating it myself. And obviously that was not in a good direction. I was also, I was made fun of in school, in elementary school. Kids used to call me, they had a little nursery rhyme, Shane the Pain that snorts cocaine. And I never quite really understood how they were able to put that together. But my mom, she did hardcore drugs. And my grandmother, my father's mom, who raised me since I was 6 months old, she always tried to get sympathy for me by telling others my story and about my mom and everything. So the only thing I can think is she must have told some of the teachers who have kids that went to that school, who must have overheard them talking at their house and they came to school. But I was a castaway, I guess you could say, bullied. So I naturally drifted to what I characterize as the welcoming crowd, which is the people who usually accept anybody. And they're the ones who are just, out there themselves, started doing drugs at 13 and just really heading down the wrong road.
There's a lot of people in our prison system that have similar backgrounds like that. When did you start getting wrapped up into the criminal justice system as an adult?
Well, as an adult, I had a lot of run-ins as a juvenile. Shortly after turning 18, I had like a CDS charge, destruction of property charge, minor offenses. I don't think, I never set out, my major felony as an adult was first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder.
How old were you when that happened?
I just turned 20. It happened February 11th, and my birthday was December 29th.
So you were just 20 years old, facing a murder charge, but with a history of juvenile problems. How did the judicial system respond to you?
Oh, I mean, I think they looked at me as being like one of the poster childs of, having a criminal career. I mean, it was just, in their minds, I felt like it was just the natural progression of the path that I was on. I know initially the judge that sentenced me, she's also the one that released me on a modification of sentence, which, as you know, it doesn't rely on any technicalities or anything like that. It's just basically her opinion on if she should release me early, and she did. But at sentencing, she said that I'm a very dangerous person, and all these other things. And
what sentence did she impose?
Double life, suspended down to 55 years concurrent for each count, first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
So you were 20 years old and sentenced to a double life term. Tell us about the adjustment that had to occur before your judge would consider you again. What was your life like when you went into a prison system at 20 with a multiple life sentence?
Well, it was kind of like I was in shock initially. Luckily, I have a big family on my dad's side. One of my aunts retired from the circuit court in Anne Arundel County. And, she just told me, do everything you can to better yourself. She said, get involved in every program you can, do whatever you can. So, I did. That's exactly what I did. And initially, my intention was, I just want to get the hell out of here or do whatever I can to get the hell out, while I can still have a life.
Did you start that mindset from the second you walked in, or did you go into the prison system and get influenced in some kind of way by the culture of confinement?
Well, I mean, the culture of confinement, I would say, is a counter to self-improvement. When you're doing a lot of the programs and everything, a lot of the guys that I interacted with in there, I mean, I don't think they believe that hard work pays off, that sincere change is rewarded. I feel like when we've been used to so many labels for so long in our lives, we never feel like those labels can change, even though they can. And, most of what I did, basically, I mean, like I said, my one aunt gave me that advice. So in the detention center, I was partaking in whatever program I could, which is not many when you're in, I was obviously in the maximum security holding area, pending trial and everything like that. So you're limited as to what you can do. But I started there. And when I went into the prison system, I started out at the Maryland House of Corrections, otherwise known as the Cut, which is since my release been torn down and everything. And I started getting involved in programs there. The prison system has more. And initially, my intention was not to have this epiphany and sincere change, but just to do what I needed to do to try to, I guess, manipulate the system, so to speak, to get out as soon as I could. But the funny thing is, the more an individual exposes themselves to something, anything, whatever it is, good or bad, the more you can't help but for it to take hold at some point. And so there was a transition that took place, unbeknownst to me. I mean, I wasn't even really cognizant of it taking place as it was taking place. But as I participated in an impact class, voice class, I took advantage of all the social work classes, conflict resolution. When something rings true, it rings true. And when you really give things a chance and immerse yourself in it and open your minds to what you're, partaking in, that's when there's a real chance for change and a real chance for you to really discover who you truly are, beneath all the scars that may have incurred over the earlier period of your life through hardships and things.
And over the course of those first years that you served in prison, tell us about the academic credentials that you were able to earn.
There's a lot of college offerings in the prison system. Because of budget issues, obviously, that changes almost every fiscal year as to what's being offered and things like that. But if guys don't have their GEDs, they always have, a GED service in there, and there's a correlation between guys who earn their GEDs and the recidivism rate dropping by, I think, like 60 to 70% upon their release. The bottom line is, the more education you acquire in prison, the less likely you are to get locked up for multiple reasons. It's going to help with your decision-making process and your reasoning abilities, but it's also going to make you more employable, when you get out. I mean, I used to tell guys, I'm not going to allow this time to count for nothing. This is time that when it's gone, we're never going to get it back. So my mentality was, this is just basically going to be my college. Luckily, they have libraries. So if you don't have resources to where, like, I had family who would, if I wanted books, they'd send me the books I wanted. But libraries, you can get any book you want through the library, the interlibrary loan system, all that. I'm kind of like nearsighted now. I mean, I think I've read so much in prison. I mean, I'd spend 10, 12, 14 hours a day reading philosophy, mythology, drug books. I got a diploma in sex and drug abuse counseling when I was in there through a correspondence course. I really wanted to understand myself, because so often we get mad when we feel like someone's pulled one over on us or if someone's done something to harm us. But really the whole time we're blind to the fact that no one's hurting us more than our decisions are hurting us. I mean, we hurt ourselves more than anyone else can. And we seem to be oblivious to it, with these bad decisions and stuff like that. I mean, I really wanted to stop that trend in my life. So, I still don't really like reading, but it's essential to my education and the betterment of my life. So I do.
So you had a double life sentence. You're in there learning and educating and participating in courses. Did you see a path that would translate into maybe the possibility of advancing your release date? And if so, tell us at what time you started to see that path.
Well, I had a modification of sentence held in sub curia, which means until a later date. And it was under the old guidelines in Maryland where there was no time constraints on there. Now there's the 5-year time constraint that, 5 years after your last court proceeding, you no longer can have your modification if it's being held in sub curia. So I started writing my judge around 2006.
When did you go in?
2000.
So in 2000, you went in, and between 2000 and 2006, I take it, you had built a pretty substantial record of accomplishments in prison. Is that right?
Correct.
And so in 2006, then the next step you took was to write your judge. And tell us what you told your judge and how she responded.
Well, first, my aunt also told me to write my judge every 6 months and update her on how I'm doing. And because she said, judges, you got to think about what their world is like. They're dealing with so many cases and so many people. It's hard for them. Basically, my aunt said, you don't want to be just another court case number. You need to be an individual to this person. So she said, write her every 6 months and update her on your progress. So I was doing that the whole time, and but not asking for anything, just more like, hi, how are you? I hope you're well. This is how I'm doing. This is, I would tell her the thoughts I was having, what I was experiencing in there, what my goals were, what I was setting out to do. And that would be it. And then in 2006, I hit her with a letter like that again. And then I requested that, she scheduled me a court date for my modification of sentence, which she denied, but acknowledged the progress I've been making.
Well, that's very good advice. I really like that advice. We teach that advice in our course, that it's really important to cultivate and nurture a strong support network. And we do that through effort and by always being top of mind and letting people know what we are doing, because there is going to come a time when that will stand out. And it sounds like that your commitment to writing her every 6 months did keep you top of mind. At 6 years, she didn't let you go. But what happened after that?
Well, I wrote her every year after that, requesting the same thing, updating her. And so 2007, she denied it again. 2008, she denied it again. 2009, she denied it again. I mean, she denied. But
and how are you dealing with those denials? What's going on in your mind? Is it how is that influencing your adjustment?
It's I mean, it's crushing, you know, I mean, for anybody who's been inside prison, you know, for any duration of time with potentially, you know, you don't need a life sentence to have enough time to die in prison. And I had a significant amount of time to where it's like, okay, even if I don't die in prison, if I do 55 years, you know, I'm going to be in my 70s when I get out. What kind of life am I going to have? I mean, I don't think the average citizen could really fully appreciate what a guy in prison with a lot of time goes through emotionally, psychologically. So that was crushing for me. But by that point, you know, our decisions as a man, as a woman, you know, we shouldn't base our decisions off of the external circumstances. I mean, our internal constitution was really what should dictate our decisions in life and the routes we go down. So even though she's denying me a chance to get out and be free and have this life out there, you know, and the effect, I mean, it's going to have an emotional impact on me, you know, on anyone. You know, still the important thing is to stay true to my internal constitution, which is to still make the right decisions and to better myself and to educate myself, because even in that environment, the better I was able to be for myself, the more I could help the other guys around me to better themselves. And
absolutely. You know, the more we work to improve lives for others, the better, the stronger we make ourselves. You certainly found that, and you kept at it. Even though the system was denying you, you continued to be disciplined and focused. And walk us through when eventually that started to move the needle for you. How did that transpire?
So in 2014, it was the same deal. You know, I was updating her on my progress, requested a hearing date. And the funny thing, my lawyer and me were arguing at the time because he was telling me I'm not eligible for a sentence modification because of the new law change. But I mean, I knew otherwise. So I wrote my judge and requested it again, and she granted it.
After 14 years in prison.
After 14, well, by the time when she set the date, they would have been 14 and a half years. Yeah.
So when did you write the letter, and when did you hear that she had set a date? How much time passed?
I mean, it was probably a couple months. I'd say about 2 months. And then I knew she granted it and gave me a court date. And, you know, obviously, or, you know, for those who don't know, in a modification of sentence, a judge has the leeway to do whatever they want. I mean, she could have just suspended a couple years off my sentence to where I'd have had more to do, or she could have suspended the remainder of it and gave me time served. And, you know, with everything I did, one of the things I realized is what those letters did for all those years was gave her a track record, because my passion is working with at-risk youth. And I told her, you know, like I want to mentor youth. And I actually said in one letter, I said, if I'm not going to get the opportunity to do it out there, then I'm going to do it in here. And a couple years later, you know, it came about that we were able to start a mentoring group in one of the prisons I was in for the younger guys, to give them an alternative to the gang lifestyle that's running rampant inside prisons. So I obviously wrote her, you know, after that and was updating her. And so she's seen how for years and years, I was telling her, well, I'm going to do this despite where I am, despite what you know, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get, you know, I eventually earned my associate's degree in business management. You know, I told her, you know, years prior to any of these accomplishments, I let her know this is exactly what I'm setting out to do and what I'm going to do. And then I did it. And so, you know, that really gave her the foundation she needed to give me a chance when she did. You know, so I think it's vital that guys have that line of communication with their judge. I know some judges will not accept letters from their defendants, but you can go through your lawyer. But I think it's imperative that they do that, you know, the whole time.
Not only to the judge, Shane, but it's important for people to just notify the world. The more that you can build a record of accomplishments, the easier it is for people to believe in you. And I think that you're absolutely right. You say what you're going to do, and then you do it, and you start to, that's the seeds that start to unwind, or the new seeds that start to build a new future for you that completely disrupts the expectations that other people have. When she sentenced you to multiple life terms, she certainly didn't expect you to have a positive attitude and make good decisions in prison, but you did, and that made all the difference. So what happened at that hearing when she brought you into court?
Well, I think, so I actually had a couple correctional officers who attended as character witnesses. My case manager attended. And obviously, there was a death in my case. The victim's family was there. The victim's sister actually became a lawyer. And they, obviously they got on the stand and said what they had to say. And my judge actually defended me against the victim's family. And I mean, it was just a teacher that I worked for 5 years as a teacher's aide in there. My judge asked him, she was like, would you be okay if Mr. Pardo lived next to you? And his response was, he could stay with me if he needed a place to stay. I feel perfectly safe with him around, and I think, I think it's important for guys to make the most out of their environment in there. There are some bad people in authoritative positions in prison, but not everyone. Most of them are not, and regardless of how someone treats you, how we treat others is not a reflection of those other individuals. It's a reflection of ourselves and our beliefs. So I think it's always important. There's a saying, be civil to all, social to some, familiar to few. I think regardless of how someone's treating you, still be civil to them, still be respectful to them, because that is a reflection of who you are. And one of the COs that I was real close to told me one time, he said, Pardo, everyone recognizes hard work and sincerity. He's like, and that's what you got working for you. And I think that's true. If you just be true to yourself and sincere and positive and just focus on what you need to do, regardless if you come across an officer that's anti-inmate, as they say, I mean, if they might not like you, but they'll respect you, And my judge, like I said, she cut me loose that day. She suspended all my time, and 2 hours later, I walked out of the courtroom, which was so unheard of. I mean, even the sheriffs there that run the courtrooms didn't know. We didn't know how the process was going to work because it never happened before.
So you were in prison one day serving a multiple life sentence. The next day you go to court, not knowing what's going to happen. And that afternoon you're having cheeseburgers in society.
Yeah. It was the courthouse in Annapolis, Maryland. And the first place I ate when I got out was Red Lobster, because my grandma, that was like one of our favorite places to go. So they took me to Red Lobster right there by the Annapolis Mall.
Tell us about your adjustment since you've come home. I know that you've got an amazing academic story. Tell us what you were able to do and where you're going in the future.
Okay, well, it was a period of transition. I wouldn't say I had a flawless reentry. There were some bumps in the roads because of my charges and everything like that. And obviously my life history, I guess you could say I was a special case for probation. So they kind of had their foot on my neck the whole time. But I mean, still I was able to make the connections necessary. When you're doing what you need to do, inevitably you're going to find yourself in a place where there's others in those same places who might not share your experiences, but want to reach out and help guys who are coming from these backgrounds, who are trying to do the best they can to be the best they can. So I ended up getting invited to do a public speaking event for the Anne Arundel County Conflict Resolution Center annual fundraiser. And I did, and I shared my story and everything and what my intentions were going forward. And I made a lot of connections there. Currently, I have spoken at a class at Anne Arundel County Community College, and just recently I was asked to speak to a couple classes there again. I'm enrolled in the University of Baltimore, pursuing my law degree to become a criminal justice attorney. And also, let me see here. I got so many things going on right now. I mean, it's hard for me to believe and wrap my head around still, but there's just so many things that I'm fortunate enough to be involved in because of where I've come from and where I am. The Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency, they have me on a panel with them to help develop a comprehensive youth development program from ages birth up until 24 years old. Working with the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services in Maryland, trying to find a way for ex-offenders who have turned their lives around to give back and help newly released ex-offenders make the most out of their reentry. We have a mentoring program in mind, but there's some hangups on that. They're just worried about a few issues. but they are also we're talking about maybe possibly doing speaking events where guys like myself who are successfully re-entering society go and do little speaking engagements with guys newly released and everything to try to help them avoid pitfalls and encourage them to just really try to actualize their fullest potential.
So you've been out of jail now for about 4 years since that. Is that about right? 3 or 4 years since the judge said?
Yeah, May 19th will be 4 years.
May 19th will be 4 years. Did you complete your undergraduate degree in prison or when you got out of prison?
Well, I'm going to get the undergraduate degree now and then transfer to the School of Law.
I see. So you're finishing your undergraduate degree and then you will begin law school. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. There's some. Some of the people at UB were telling me I should switch up the undergraduate major and go straight. They have like an early entry process for law school to where you can complete it within in a year less. So I'm considering that. But my lawyer's the one she told me to not major in my undergraduate in law, to do it in something else. So that's why I chose psychology, because I'm pretty well read in that area, so I feel like it would be an easier course of study for me, and then transfer to the School of Law. But with what some of the classmates and people were telling me the other day when I was at UB, that's something I'm considering doing, just switching the major and going right into the early entry program for law. What is
UB? What university are you going to?
University of Baltimore. And I chose that university because the judge that released me, she graduated from the University of Baltimore Law School. So I felt as though it was a good way of paying tribute to her for giving me a second chance at life.
Have you been in contact with her since your release?
No, she retired. And something else I forgot to mention earlier. So she released me in the fashion that she did on a modification. She was retiring. She was going out the door. And she even said that she had 19 people with modifications before her, and she denied every single one but mine. And then obviously what she did for me was the ultimate thing she could do.
That is the result of good decisions that you made while you were in prison.
Exactly.
Instead of adjusting to the prison environment, you stayed focused. You made 100% commitment to success. You took appropriate action steps and held yourself accountable, and made yourself aware of opportunities, but you also made other people aware of your sincerity and your authenticity, and good things happen. And anybody who's listening to your inspiring story should be recognizing that regardless of what challenges they're going through right now, they can sow seeds for a better outcome. And we certainly heard that in your story, Shane, and I really want to thank you for sharing that with our audience. This is coming to the end of this episode. Do you have any final words of wisdom that you might offer for people who are in prison or people who may be going into prison about what steps they can take to prepare for a more successful journey?
Let me see here. There's a lot that could be said. I would say, be true to self, find out who you are truly, what inspires you, what you're passionate about. We're all in this together. It doesn't matter if it's an individual who's never been locked up. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who's been locked up for 20, 30 years. We are all connected in one way or another. And the better that each of us are doing, the better, the whole of humanity will do. Don't be discouraged in prison by what you may feel is a lack of opportunity or being judged. Sometimes you're going to be judged by your fellow convicts, based off of the activities you're doing, because they can't understand why you're doing what you're doing, because they don't believe in the system. But it's not so much about believing in the system and anything else. It's about believing in yourself and being the best you can be.
Well, Shane Pardo, you have become the best that our prison system can produce, and you've inspired other people who are going inside or people who are inside just to stay focused on what they can become and not focus on creating a prison reputation or listening to what other people have to say. Listen to leaders like Shane, and you will come out stronger than when you went in. We'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest on the Prison Professors podcast. If you want more information on how we help, please visit prisonprofessors.com or send a text to 44222 and get a free brochure that will describe the different ways that we serve. Wishing you success. We'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest. Thank you.